in this lesson we'll add the cockpit to our pod. So let's go ahead and add an area in here where our driver will sit. We'll just select some of the polygons, and I'm going to start kind of right up here, and let's just go down that far, and maybe 3 across and 4 back, so maybe something like that. And now I want to inset this, so when we smooth it there's a nice tight edge there. To help with that, we'll do an inset, kind of a small amount, so maybe 0.2 or 0.3, something along those lines. Alright, let's extrude that down, and the first extrude that we'll do is a small one. So I've got minus 0.2 or so. I want to definitely go in the minus direction, so we want to push it down into the body there. Okay, but I don't want to go too far. Okay, and let's apply and continue, and then we'll create another one and push that one down a little bit further. Okay, do the same thing and say OK to that, and then if we want to, we can kind of scale this in. So if you want to create an interior for this, feel free to go ahead and do that. I'm not going to really do too much with the interior because we're going to put kind of a dome across here. So looking at this, we are going to be smoothing this. So let's add a temporary smooth to this. And we'll change the number of iterations here. So looking at this, it's kind of squared off a little bit. So I want to round it off slightly. And so I'm just going to take some of these points and let's just move them back a little bit. And then up here, let's take these and just kind of move those forward. Okay, that can help to round things off. We can also take the points here at the corners. So for instance, right here, and start to move those back a little bit and just round things off, and do the same thing back here. If we don't want to have kind of more of a square, kind of a square shape there, we can kind of just round those off a little bit more, and you can see how that gives us a little bit more of a round shape. Okay, now looking at this, if we are going to smooth this, we need to add a little bit more resolution up here to keep those tight edges. Okay, we can do that as time goes on here. Let's concentrate on our cockpit piece. So with this smooth on, we also need to add the raised kind of glass area for our cockpit. We can do that using a sphere. So I'm just going to drop a sphere in. All right. And let's add a little bit of resolution. We could also smooth this, but I think just adding the resolution will probably be sufficient. Okay, so we'll go up to maybe 36 so we get something nice and smooth. Let's actually take that down to the hemisphere. So something more like that. Maybe extend it down a little bit further than the base here. And now that we've got this, we're using squash, so we can take the number of segments down a bit. We still want to get a nice smooth shape there though. Okay, kind of move it up here into position. We can scale this, so you can see we can kind of scale it in, can sort of scale it down a bit, but ultimately we'll probably want to add our deformer to this to get it to match up a little bit more nicely with what we've got here. Alright, so we'll go ahead and add a deformer, and in this case, let's use an FFD and a 4x4x4, which we haven't used yet. This just gives us a little bit more control. We can kind of change this up, and I'm trying to do things the same on both sides so that we're not getting anything that's off on one side. I want it to be pretty much the same on both sides. Okay, and so here we can start to kind of bring this forward a bit. Maybe we want this to stay the same. This will kind of bring in a little bit, so it's going to be a little bit more squared off. Okay. And then same thing back here. This one's maybe a little bit more squared off. This one we may want to sort of bring out a little bit more and just make it fit with whatever opening you've created there. Now if you want to bulge it out, we can take these points on the side and start to bulge those out a little bit if you want to create a little bit more of an interesting shape there. But that will help us just kind of fit it in here. And having this still with a sphere, you know, inside there, we can always go in and add more resolution if we need to. So it's not been sort of baked down yet. And you can see if we turn off our edge faces, it's a little bit easier to see the gaps, possibly. And so we can come in here, tweak this. We can also change the shape, if we wanted to, of the cockpit itself. Just kind of bring this out a little. Okay, so we end up with something like that. Now the points up here where we want to add resolution, if we turn off our turbo smooth, we can just go ahead and get our Swift loop to do this really, really quickly. Okay, and so we'll go to our editable poly or on Swift loop, and anywhere we want to have a sharper edge, we'll use this to add resolution. And so that just helps us when we're coming in and smoothing this. It interpolates now between edges that are really, really close, and so that makes a much tighter edge. You can do the same thing on the face of this as well. Okay, so that just doing that should look a little bit better. We turn that back on. You can see that that is now much tighter within there. There are still some areas, for instance, on the other side that we didn't get, but you can go ahead and just repeat that process on the other side, and that will tighten it up while being able to smooth everything else. All right. So if we take a look at this, let's turn off our turbo smooth and take a look at this again. And let me undo that. You can see where we've got a little bit off here on some of our points. We can go ahead and just kind of fix this by moving those points around. We can grab a couple of these points, and kind of if any of those points get a little messed up with your different lattices that you're using, you can go ahead and just kind of fix those up. We're not really too concerned about the underside here, but you can smooth that out a little if you want. All right, and you could go in from the side also and flatten that out if you want it to be completely flat. All right, so now that we've got our sort of cockpit added, let's add some geometry along the back here. So extending the back of this into the base and kind of just making it work a little bit better together. So let's do that in the next lesson.